to GH ASMR. I am so excited for today's true crime episode. I mean, I'm always excited about every true crime episode, but this one, I thought I was into like the past ones, but like this one was so tea. Like it was so tea. Period. I just want to say thank you to all my returning subscribers and thank you to my new subscribers. Welcome to the family. Today, like I said, we have another true crime episode. Let's get into it. In a world where answers often come too late, one mother refused to stop asking questions. Andrea Bowman vanished in 1989, just a teenager. Her story lost in silence. For decades, the truth remained buried. But when Kathleen Doyle, sorry if I'm saying her last name wrong, the birth mother who never stopped wondering, re-entered the picture, the case cracked open like never before. This is not just a story of loss, it's a story of relentless love, hidden truths, and one woman's unstoppable fight to uncover what really happened. This case unearths a haunting mystery and the courage it took to solve it. Kathleen Doyle and Edward met at a bar where they quickly fell in love and got married. After about a month, Kathy tells Edward that she had a child that she gave up for adoption. Kathy explains that this was heart-wrenching that she had ever done this. She was only 16 when she had her daughter, and it was becoming a reality that she was going to have to get her out of a diaper, she was going to have to feed her, she was going to have to do all of these things. Kathy's mother basically cornered her and said, you need to give this baby up for adoption. Kathy was told that as long as she gave her up as an infant, that she would have the best parents and the best experience. And that was all that Kathy really wanted for her daughter. She felt like her daughter deserved a better life, and so she let her go into the adoption system in Norfolk, Virginia, so that she could have a better life. She was only 9 months at the time. Not a day went by that she didn't think of her, but it was a close adoption, and her daughter had never came looking for her. 35 years later, in 2010, she receives a letter from the adoption agency. She was so excited at first that her daughter was finally looking for her, but instead, she found out her daughter went missing 21 years ago in 1989 when she was only 14 years old. The police needed her DNA to identify the body that they had found near a cornfield. So she gave her DNA. Okay, so backstory, right? So she receives this letter from the adoption agency basically saying that her daughter had gone missing, right? And they mainly were reaching out because they needed DNA because they had found a body near a cornfield and they had believed that this was related. So, like I said, the police needed her DNA to identify the body. So Kathy obviously gave her DNA and they were told her like just wait some time and we'll have the answers. Kathy didn't know what to do as her daughter had been missing for 21 years prior to finding her. So she's like, I don't even know what to do, where to begin, any of that. Like, it's been so long. So what Kathy did was she took matters into her own hands. She got in contact with police, she got in contact with the adoption agency, but the issue she was facing was that they weren't giving her any information, such as her daughter's adopted name or where she went missing, because she didn't have those rights of her being her mother anymore. She gave those rights away when she gave her up for adoption. But that wasn't going to stop her. She knew her daughter's birthday, so she went on the computer. She was searching up missing child with that same birthday, and no more than 10 minutes it took for them, her and her husband, Kathy and Edward, to find a missing person with the same birthday as her daughter, which was June 23rd. was Andrea Michelle Bowman, where she lived in Hamilton, Michigan. She started searching the internet for information on her daughter and her daughter's adopted parents, but she was coming to dead ends. She took matters into her own hands again when she created a Find Aundria M. Bowman Facebook page. She wrote a post saying, basically, welcome members. If you know anything about Aundria, please message me via private messenger. Kathy started receiving messages and information started flowing. Andrea's relative, Sue Engwiller, I believe, I don't know how to say that, Engwiller, contacted Kathy immediately to give her more information. Andrea was adopted by Brenda and Dennis Bowman. Brenda was her husband's cousin, where they all went to school together. Brenda was told that there was a double uterus and her chances of becoming pregnant were very slim. So that's when her and Dennis started looking into adoption. They got a call one morning to adopt Aundria, and Aundria was described as a daddy's girl who was the sweetest kid that ever walked and a gift from God to the family. Aundria was 13 years old when Brenda started getting sick, so Brenda took a pregnancy test and realized that she was pregnant, which was an idea that she never thought would ever happen. Aundria was ecstatic when Vanessa was born. By age 12 to 13, Dennis said that something flipped within Aundria and she started to run away from home. She was taking drugs from kids at school. She was shoplifting. She was lying. She even punched a hole through a window of their front door. She was just acting very different. The day Aundria went missing, Brenda explained that Dennis had taken her to school that morning because there was something for band. He went and picked her up. Aundria was being very quiet with them, and then Brenda had to go to work, second shift, so they got the baby, and they took the baby with them so that Aundria could do her homework, and she wouldn't have the excuse that she was watching the baby, you don't have any excuses, you're gonna do your homework. So Dennis dropped Brenda off, and when he got home, he walked through the front door to find the house unlocked. He took the baby in, he laid the baby on the couch, he went upstairs and was calling for her. He found the door to their bedroom that was blocked to be busted open. One of their carry bags to stay overnight was gone. Cash in an envelope was also gone. Also, cash in the piggy bank of the baby was also gone, and Andrea's purple coat was gone. So he called the police right away and reported her missing. The prosecuting attorney said that within the first few days of Aundria missing, people were looking out for her. There were reports of her being seen in the Holland area and areas nearby. There were tips of people saying that they saw her at a roller skating rink. They saw her at grocery stores. A family friend even said that they saw her in the checkout line with her hair bleached and possibly pregnant. There was other reports of her working in an adult entertainment industry in Indiana. Another person heard that she had gone to a truck stop, went in the truck with one of the truckers, and took her to live somewhere else. The issue, though, was any of the information they were getting, they couldn't really go off of, and the case went cold. Brenda said that she would get off work around 11:30 p.m., where she would drive around looking for Aundria. Until one day her husband was like, we've had enough, you need to stop doing this. You have a baby at home that you need to look after. You need to stop, just stop doing it. Kathy said that when she had Alexis, now Alexis is Aundria, right? But that's what Kathy had named Alexis, just so we don't get confused if I say Alexis is Andrea. So Kathy said that when she had Alexis, she was a runaway as her mother was physically abusive. And Kathy, at Andrea's age or Alexis' age, ran away to New Orleans with nothing but the clothes she had she knew that the police were also not looking for Aundria. It took this web sleuth guy named Carl in California in 2010 to get the police started on Alexis's case. Carl started getting involved with the missing and unidentified in 2009 when he was on a website called Web Sleuths that dealt with unsolved mysteries and missing person cases where amateur sleuths could collaborate online to try and solve these cases. There were several instances where he was able to solve missing person cases from various states. Carl had came across this case from 1999 from Racine, Wisconsin, where there was a Jane Doe who was brutally murdered and sexually abused, where the body was found by law enforcement in a cornfield on the side of the road. Carl had inputted the information that he knew about the case into a spreadsheet, and he filtered for 13 cases, one being Andrea Bowman. Andrea was listed as missing from Hamilton, Michigan in 1989. The Jane Doe was found in Racine, Wisconsin in 1999. Andrea was 14 when she had disappeared, and Jane Doe was in her mid-20s, so the age fit about right. Carl created a facial reconstruction drawing which showed a lot of similarities between the two, especially in the nose. Now, Holland also on a map was right across Lake Michigan from Racine, Wisconsin, and that's when he called police. After 3 years, they finally tested Kathy's DNA and sent her the results for this case, and it wasn't her daughter. Kathy felt relieved, but she was also like wondering still where her daughter was. Like, she was like, oh, it wasn't my daughter, but she was also like, but where is my daughter still? Now, Chris Haverdink, who was a year ahead of Andrea in school, also was working at the sheriff's office, and he said that there wasn't even talk about her being missing or running away, nothing about her at all. So Chris was determined to get this case solved. Kathy started putting all her energy into the Facebook page, as now she felt more confident that she wasn't doing this all alone. Meta McLeod reached out to Kathy on May 11th of 2013. She wrote, I just want to share with you that in September of 1989, I was abducted from Holland, Michigan at the Windmill gas station on the south side of Holland. I can't help but think our stories may be connected. She tells a story of a day she walked home after school when she asked her mom if she could go to her friend's house, which she did very frequently. She said that they always walked to each other's houses, but her mom this day was like, no. She kept begging her mom, to where finally her mom was like, fine, just go and call me when you get there. She was only 6 years old at the time. When she was walking, a man drove up next to her on the sidewalk and said, your mom said I could take you to go see some puppies. He grabbed the girl because she was close enough to where he could grab her. He just grabbed her and put her in his red pickup truck. At one point, they came to a four-way intersection where he saw a cop and he told her to lay down. Then, as they kept driving, he was putting her hair like behind her ear and rubbing her cheek. She said he was very nice at first, but then his whole demeanor changed. He pulled over, he got out, he got a rope where he yanked her around the neck and dragged her into the woods. He took off all of her clothes and tied the sweater around her mouth to keep her quiet. He unzipped her pants when all of a sudden dogs started barking because there was like a campsite nearby. Maybe like he got scared or something, so she said he got frightened, he ran, and he like left her there. She said he did sexually assault her. She was able to untie herself and she ran to the road naked when someone called 911, but unfortunately they were never able to catch this guy. What she did do though was she kind of described this guy, and so they did have a visual like picture of what the guy was gonna look like, right? So they she saw a picture of Andrea's adopted father, Dennis Bowman, when she realizes that this guy looks exactly like the guy who kidnapped her. Dennis had worked right down the road from where Meta was abducted. It was a little after 3, and it had seemed like he had maybe just gotten out of work. The route went basically right by his house, pretty close to where she had been taken into the woods. Dennis also had went to church right by the road from where he abducted her, and the red pickup truck she had been taken in was a truck that Dennis had at the time as well. Meta said when she also heard his voice, like in a tape, it sent chills down her back, and it was a voice that she had remembered, and she really believed that it was Dennis that did this to her. Sue told Kathy about the time Aundria was sitting. She was kind of hunched over, like looking down, when Brenda went up and said, "Well, did you hear what the kid did? Want me to tell you what the kid did?" And Sue was like, thinking in her head, like, this is your child, supposedly. Andrea would cross her arms, or she'd look down and, up and down, and she just seemed withdrawn and demeaned. Andrea's friend told a story about one day when she went over to her house after school. Andrea had told her to wait outside. When Andrea went inside, her dad immediately started chasing her, yelling and screaming. He grabbed her foot and she fell down. They went upstairs, so the girl wasn't able to see anything else. But on Monday, when they were back at school, she asked her about it, and Andrea had told her that he was hitting her because she was late getting off the bus, even though she was not late getting off the bus. Another friend said at dinner time, the parents were eating hamburgers, and they were only allowed to eat what's called a leftover sandwich, which was ketchup, mustard, and relish on 2 pieces of bread. Andrea had made a comment that this was all she was allowed to eat. Dennis came across the table right in front of her friend and hit her so hard she almost was knocked off the chair. Brenda had sat there, did nothing about it, kind of acted like nothing happened. She just kept beating the baby and just was going about her dinner. Another friend told a story about how Andrea would hide out at her house, and one time she hid at her house for up to 4 days to get away from her parents. That's when Andrea had opened up to her about how her dad would come into her room at night and make her do sexual things that she did not want to do. They both went to school that next day and told the principal about what had happened to Andrea. But with this school, when you would kind of accuse your parents of doing something, they would invite the parents to also sit in the room with you. So you would have to confess, you would have to reconfess not only to like the principal and the other teachers and counselors, but you would also have to say it in front of your parents. And like any teenager, like that doesn't make you feel comfortable and safe, so you're not going to admit to it. So she was basically like nothing, and you were just sent back home to your parents. So obviously things have changed now, but at the time they still did that. Brenda said Andrea and Dennis had gotten into an argument, and she had told Brenda that her dad was molesting her, and Brenda told her, like, that's a lie, like, that's not true, that's a lie. They also had Andrea in counseling at the time, and the 3 of them went to go talk to the minister. The minister had talked to Andrea first, and then brought in the 2 parents. The minister goes, "Do you have anything to say?" And Andrea goes, "Yeah, I lied." Dennis said that she admitted nobody had touched her, and she was just trying to get her way. Andrea had been trying to tell everybody that she could about what was happening to her with the molestation of her father, but nobody was listening. Her friends were trying to tell her to leave the house and get out, but she didn't want to leave her sister Vanessa. Brenda had called Sue to tell her that Andrea had ran away, but nowhere in that story was anything about her taking money. She told her that she didn't take anything with her, no purse, no makeup, nothing. Sue remembers telling her husband, like, that's kind of odd. Sue explained that Dennis's demeanor really bothered her a lot, and she reported him to the police. Kathy had FOIA'd, I believe it is, Dennis Bowman. Now, FOIA'd is the Freedom of Information Act, which is basically a law where you can get a form, send some money, and they'll send you all, like, the court records. Dennis had 2 cases. One was his arrest for breaking and entering and stalking a coworker, where he served a year in county jail. The second case, he had attacked a teenage victim along Lakeshore Drive near Kirk Park in Holland, Michigan. He had shot at the victim twice. He didn't shoot at to hit her, but he shot around her or past her to scare her. He was yelling at her to get into the woods, and basically when she would say no, he would shoot, and then he would be like, get in the woods. The girl was able to escape, but when Dennis was caught, he said, you gotta let me go. I have to go pick up my little daughter from school. He went straight to pre-trial. He was initially charged with attempted murder and pled to assault with intent to commit criminal sexual conduct. The court concluded that he is in danger to women if he is not confined. On February 2nd, 1981, he was sentenced 5 to 10 years for her attack. Brenda would take Aundria to visit her dad, Dennis, in prison, and on January 31st, 1986, he was released. Aundria was 11 at the time that he was released, and I believe she was 6 when he was sentenced to this prison sentence. Everyone was very shocked that Brenda had stayed with him, especially bringing Aundria to the prison to visit him. They were just like, what? This is so weird. Your husband is doing all these horrible things, and you're bringing your young daughter to visit him, and also you're just sticking by his side. Everyone was very, very shocked. Now, Kathy, after reading all of this, was convinced that he had murdered her daughter. Shortly after Andrea went missing, the Bowmans moved to a new home, which was weird to people too, because they're like, well, what if she comes back? Where would she go? They literally, the house had been demolished. I think it was knocked down. I don't know if it was after they moved or what, but all I know is the house is not there anymore. It's been demolished. As Kathy and Carl kept investigating, they always looked at Google Earth to look at the Bowman's house, and in the backyard they noticed this weird oval thing that kept changing over time, and it seemed like they were hiding something there. Kathy believed that her daughter was in that backyard. Carl didn't think it'd be possible, as he couldn't think of a way Dennis would have killed her, and then 5 to 6 months later put her body in their new house's backyard. But Kathy would not relent, and she just had a feeling that her daughter was there. Kathy called the police and told them that her body was in the backyard, but police can't just go and dig up someone's yard just because the mother has this feeling, right? But Dennis was on the top of the list of suspects, but he always denied involvement in her disappearance. Kathy then took matters into her own hands again and posted a billboard with Andrea's face on it, saying it said unsolved mystery or unsolved missing, reward $11,000. It was huge. It had a number to call. It was basically a missing person poster, but on a billboard. It was on the main road going from where Dennis had lived. Kathy would also call them, Brenda and Dennis, every single day, and she was calling them so frequently and leaving so many voicemails back to back to back that they actually had disconnected their phone line the next week. She was posting many Facebook posts calling out Dennis, and she just wanted Dennis to know that she knew the truth. Now, one day, Kathy found out that police were at, Dennis's house, or at the evening of September 9th of 1980, one of Kathleen's good friends, Vivian, came over that night where they had a couple glasses of wine, and Vivian left around 9:30. The next day, Vivian started to get really concerned because she couldn't reach Kathleen. So Vivian went back that next day to her house, realized that the door was open, so she goes into the door, into the house. She goes in the living room and realizes the 2 wine glasses are still sitting on the coffee table where they had left them. So she's like, that's weird. She keeps walking. She goes to Kathleen's bedroom where she finds Kathleen dead on her floor. A murder investigation started immediately. Kathleen's room was all tore up. Her mattress had been pushed off the box spring as if there was a struggle there. Kathleen was lying on top of the bedspread on the floor with no clothes on. She was sexually assaulted, and her cause of death was strangulation. She also had a burn mark on her right cheek, similar to that size of like a scar or a Lincoln log. Now, if you know anything about Lincoln logs, they're sort of like a Lego almost, but you can build a log cabin with them. So there was a Lincoln log found in her bathroom, and it was charred on the end, and it matched the size of the burn mark on her face. Now, what was weird about this Lincoln log was that Kathleen did not have any children, and this was a child's toy, so they're like, where did this even come from? Originally, when Vivian and her husband went to call the police at Kathleen's house, the dispatcher couldn't hear them, but they could hear the dispatcher. Later, when police forensically processed the phone, they realized that the mouthpiece had been removed, basically keeping someone from calling for help. Now, no fingerprints were found besides Vivian and Kathleen, and some from Kathleen's husband, but he was deployed, so they knew it was not him. They also ruled out all the people that they could think of, neighbors, other friends, like everyone that they could think of. They were all ruled out, like they were all proven to not be correlated to this. So the case went cold for 40 years. 40 years. A detective had transitioned into the cold case unit in August of 2018, and he found that there were 2 DNA specimens left behind by the offender. Seminal fluid on the bedspread and seminal fluid from the grape kit. We'll call it that. He submitted the bedspread to get DNA tested, and it developed a male DNA profile of the offender. It yielded 31 names for the potential suspect or, family members of the suspect. Now, with all of them allowed to give a mouth swab sample, they would be able to find the offender, and they were all over, the United States, these people. At the bottom of this list was Dennis Bowman. As the detective is going through Dennis's cases, he sees that in the court transcript, it was saying that Dennis isn't here in Michigan. He's in Norfolk, Virginia, for a 2-week summer camp requirement for the Navy, dated September 16th of 1980. That was showing and proving that Dennis was in Virginia at the time when Kathleen was killed. Since Kathy was harassing Dennis and Brenda so much, they kind of fell into this police trap. The police felt like, obviously, Dennis was involved in the Kathleen murder, right? So they were like, okay, Kathy, we're gonna need your help. They wanted to basically use Kathy's harassment to get the Bowmans to come into the police station so that they would be able to get a sample of Dennis, right? So they called him in, and guess what they fell for? They went for this trap. They got Brenda and Dennis to come and talk to them. The police offered them drinks so that they can get this DNA sample. The DNA results came back, and it was 100% Dennis's DNA. Now later on, Dennis this house with no lights on, no car in the driveway, and he was wondering if they had any loose money around the house. So he went around to the back of the house, went up to the window. He opened the window with a pocket knife. He starts looking around the house for money. When he opens the door to Kathleen's bedroom, she sits up and she starts screaming. So he covers her mouth with his left hand, and when he went to push her down with his right hand, he still had the pocket knife or whatever in his hand. And I'm pretty sure he had stabbed her, or admitted to stabbing her or something, because she was trying to push his hand back. And I think he made a movement like this, basically insinuating that he stabbed her. But he was trying to make it seem like it was Kathleen's fault that, he had to react in the way that he did. He said when he started to calm down, she was lying on the bed, moving, and he's like, "Lady, I'm leaving." And he walked out the front door. That was his story. He kind of skipped over all the other parts of what had happened at the scene. But his story was, he's like, she was still alive and moving, and I just left. Dennis started also telling the detective that there was this demon that takes over him. And as he's explaining and drawing the demon for the detective said that he became completely different. He kind of talked different. Everything about him, his aura was just different when discussing this demon. Now Kathleen had been stabbed in her chest, in her back. Her hands were tied behind her back with a cord. She had an electrical cord tied around her neck. She had been gagged, and there were bruises all over her body from her head to her abdomen. They offered Dennis Bowman a tentative deal that if he was honest about Aundria, that they would consider allowing him to stay in Michigan. Now this was because if he was going to be sent to spend his life in prison for the Kathleen murder in Virginia, his wife Brenda would not be able to go and visit him, because she was kind of saying that on the phone calls that they were having back and forth. So they're like, let's use this to our advantage to see if he'll start talking. But he was still going off the story that he did not harm his daughter, and he would never ever kill family. Family is off limits. Obviously killing other people is not off limits, but killing your own family, absolutely not. That is drawing the line, sir. Who do you think I am? A murderer? I would never. One day though, Dennis requested to meet up with Brenda, and detectives got approval and allowed for their meetup under supervision of other detectives. Dennis said to Brenda, he was starting to confess. He was like, "I've done horrible things." He's like, "Andrea's dead, and she has been dead the whole time." He said he had came home that day with the baby, and the baby was sleeping. He took the baby in the living room and laid her on the couch. He went up the stairs and got to the edge of the steps, and Andrea was coming out of their bedroom. He was like, "What are you doing in there?" And she's like, "I'm leaving." He's like, "No, you're not gonna leave." So they start getting into this argument. Andrea's like, "Okay, well, if you don't let me leave, I'm going to tell the counselors again that you molested me." He's like, "Oh no, you're not about to do that." That's when he hit her. When he hit her though, she fell backwards on the staircase, fell all the way down the stairs. He said he ran down the stairs and he checked on her. She did not have a pulse. She wasn't breathing, and her neck just didn't look right. Her eyes were just staring, not going anywhere, and he knew she was gone. He said he didn't know what to do, and he didn't want to lose Brenda, and he also didn't want to go back to prison. So he wrapped her in a blanket. He took her out and hid her body in the barn and called the police to tell them she was missing. He said that he had found a cardboard barrel and her body wouldn't fit, so he had cut her legs off to get her to fit into this barrel. A day or two later, when the neighbors So they started to use Brenda to get to Dennis. He had finally admitted that Andrea is buried in their backyard. In their old house, he originally had the barrel buried, the barrel that was holding Andrea. In their old house, he had the barrel buried, but when he found out that they were moving, he took the barrel out over to their house. He dug a hole and put the barrel in it. He covered up the barrel in the ground. Police and detectives were like, okay, well, we need to go and see if this is true. Now, they weren't sure because he was really playing games. He was saying one thing and it wasn't actually true. Like, there was no random graveyard. Like, they looked everywhere for another graveyard. So, like, this could be another situation where we dig up this whole backyard and there's nothing. But they did it anyways. They dug up and sure enough, there she was in the barrel. Her remains were found in 4 different bags inside of the barrel. She was found in trash bags with diapers as well, and they believe that that was to mask the smell. There was also like a peppermint patty wrapper that was wrapped up with her, and it had a date of 1989, which showed that Andrea had never ran away. She was murdered the whole time. Still, Brenda had said to Dennis, "Nothing's changed, I still love you," which again is crazy work. Like, what? Crazy. DNA confirmed that it was a match to Kathy, the DNA of the body, and so this was indeed Andrea. Kathy's motherly instinct was spot on the whole time, with it being Dennis and also with it being in the backyard, which is just crazy. Like, she literally was calling it out for years and years, and kind of no one was really believing her. Like, they're like, yeah, okay, like, maybe, but it literally was. It was that the whole time. Dennis had admitted to other crimes as well. He said that when he was stationed prior to being married, he sexually assaulted a woman. Shortly after, when he had gotten married, he sexually assaulted 2 women in San Diego. And in the early 80s, he sexually assaulted a woman in a trailer park. Now, he had denied having anything to do with Meta. He was like, that wasn't me. I have nothing to do with that. But Meta still believes to this day that it was him. And also, police do, and investigators do believe that there's probably other cases that Dennis had done, especially because of the way that he had murdered Kathleen. It seemed almost like too perfect. And they were like, well, this cannot be your first murder. Like, this seems like you've done this before. You had practice, and it was just too, almost like perfect. And so they believe that there was other things that Dennis had done that he had just never came forward about. Dennis had pled no contest to the second-degree murder of Andrea Bowman, and they made the decision to send Dennis to Virginia to serve his life sentence, which is such a slight, because they were like, yeah, you thought we were gonna actually let you stay in Michigan to be with your wife. Like, no, you can go back to Virginia, and if she wants to see you, she can go travel there, but you're not gonna control this situation now, which is such a slight. Like, I love that they did that. Now, Brenda had the remains of Andrea cremated, and she wanted to give half of the remains to Kathy. Kathy felt like this was just splitting up her daughter again, like you know how Dennis had dismembered her body. Kathy was like, this is just not feeling at peace, like, for my daughter. Like, now once again, she's cremated and her body is split up. Brenda was trying to be like, here, like, you're also our mother, like, have half of her ashes. But Kathy was like, I should just have all of her ashes. Like, there shouldn't be a split up of ashes. Now, Dennis Bowman is serving 2 life sentences in a Virginia prison. And, oh my gosh, that's the end of the case. That is the end of the case. What do you all think of this? How crazy crazy was Kathy's motherly instincts. Like, that is crazy. I swear she must be spiritually gifted. Like, I swear maybe it is motherly instincts, but also, like, I swear Andrea was helping her mother the whole time. Like, she just had these feelings and this intuition that she just knew. She was just like, I just know it's there. I just know it. And it's crazy that she was right the whole time. Everything about this case was just crazy, though. It definitely took turns that I didn't know it was going to take. So that was super, like, I thought it was just a missing person case, and then it becomes like a murder, and then it becomes the father. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh, like, plot twist, another plot twist, another plot twist. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, it was so good. What do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys so much. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I make true crime videos here. That's kind of I feel like that's just what this channel is gonna be, because you guys love it and I love it. So this has become a little true crime